What's going on YouTube? Today's video is going to be over the URGI, or Upper Receiver Group Improved, adopted by US SOCOM. So for those unfamiliar, the URGI was initially a project by USASOC, which is the Army's component of US SOCOM, and was directed as a replacement for the aging Block 2 Upper Receiver Group. Now, while the Block 2 Upper Receiver Group is still in heavy use across US SOCOM, the URGI is becoming a lot more prevalent and has found its way into the hands of operators from Army SF, Naval Surface Warfare, as well as MARSOC more recently. So this Upper Receiver Group made a number of improvements to the Block 2 while keeping the nature and the profile of the original weapon largely the same. It also kept a lot of the accessories from the Block 2 program, which I'll talk about later. It made some crucial improvements in the barrel and the gas system that allows it to function more optimally with modern ammo used by SOCOM, such as the M855A1. So the Block 2 rifles and other M4s in the inventory at the time, other Mark 18s and Block 1 M4s, had some issues with M855A1 with increased parts wear due to higher port pressures, as well as damage to the feed ramps on the Upper Receiver Group. So fixing those issues was kind of one of the key features of the URGI program, but also just bringing rifles in US SOCOM up to the 21st century standards with things like an M-LOK rail, a mid-length gas system, which I don't know if you can see that under here, but this is a mid-length gas system, meaning that the gas block is further out on the barrel, which results in a smoother operation of the weapon, less wear and tear on parts, as opposed to the carbine length gas system, which is present on the Block 2. Just starting from front to back, first off is the suppressor, which there's really only two suppressors that are seen on URGIs currently. Most of SOCOM is using them with the Surefire RC, the SOCOM series of suppressors, and those are being mounted with a Surefire 4-prong. So just like on the Block 2, it's an extremely common combo, although that should be mentioned, this is an RC2, not an RC1, but for all intents and purposes, functionally the same. The barrel is a Daniel Defense government profile mid-length gas system with a 1-in-7 twist. So that is one of the major changes from the Block 2, is going to that mid-length gas system, still keeping that government profile. The Handguard is the Geissele Mark 16 Handguard. So obviously this is an M-LOK handguard, which is lighter than the old RIS-2 rail. And this is a newer version of the Mark 16, which has steel inserts for the QD sling points. The initial runs of Mark 16s just had the QD sling points milled directly into the aluminum. The problem with this is a steel QD sling swivel will eventually eat away at that aluminum and make that sling point useless. So Geissele has started implementing these steel inserts. I have not actually seen these on any issued rifles yet, but I have no doubt that that'll be just kind of a rolling change as SOCOM orders more of these. You can see this one has the NSN engraved on the side. And overall, it's a very high quality rail. They're very easy to install. If you guys have ever had a chance to install a Geissele handguard, they are extremely easy compared to some. Now, there is a little bit of controversy with these handguards. There's memes going around about these being bendy boys or not holding zero with things like IR lasers or front sights because the rail can actually flex. This comes down to a couple of things. One is people are used to the robust nature of the RIS-2, which has a very overbuilt barrel nut. So going to a slimmer M-LOK rail is naturally going to allow more rail flex, but also the gas block was kind of a culprit here. So the gas block originally was spec'd as a Daniel Defense Mark 12 gas block. And although that is a fairly low-profile gas block, it was still actually making contact with the inside of the rail, and it was beating against the rail, and that was actually causing some issues with barrel harmonics and loss of zero. So to remedy that, Daniel Defense has now started including with their barrels a low-pro gas block that is even slimmer than the Mark 12 gas block. And this has alleviated a lot of issues for the most part. Unfortunately, my understanding is the only way to buy one of those gas blocks right now is to buy it with the barrel from Daniel Defense. I'm actually not sure if the complete URGI clone upper that Geissele sells comes with that gas block or not. Perhaps somebody can educate me in the comments on that. But that's something else I should mention. Geisley does sell this upper on the commercial market. You can also buy the near clone upper, which has some of the components changed out for Geisley components. I believe the barrel, bolt, and the gas block on those are all Geisley. Don't quote me on that. But in any case, I do like to point out whenever companies do sell on the commercial market the same thing that they provide in military contracts. I've always hated when companies like Colt want to have a clear separation in their product lines. I like whenever we can get the same thing that the military can get, both from a cloning aspect and from a Second Amendment aspect. It's just cool to see that companies support that kind of mindset. So really quickly, I'll get into just the accessories up here. This particular light is a Surefire Pro Vampire light. I think it's the M640V, I think is the actual product name. There's a number of different lights that have been seen on these. Again, a lot of accessories carried over from the Block 2 rifles. So you'll see the WMX 200. You'll see a lot of different Surefire Scout lights. You'll actually see Surefire X300s and all sorts of modern pistol or rifle lights on these. For lasers, you're largely going to see the LA5 PEC 15 as well as the newer NGAL. So however these are accessorized is going to be largely dependent on what unit they're being issued to and what parts they have on hand. And that also goes for the optics setup. So one change that a lot of people did notice between the Block 2 and the URGI was the URGI is seen a lot more often with LPVOs, such as this Vortex Razor 1x6. There are pictures floating around of this optic, as well as the newer Razor 1x10, the Night Force ATACR 1x8, and several other optics on these, as well as Block 2 optics, such as the Elkin Spectre DR. There's a lot of photos of URGIs with those. And then EOTechs, aim points, and just everything else that was already in inventory. But with the change to a more modern, kind of a commercial layout for an upper receiver group with the slim M-LOK rail, you also saw the advent of LPVOs becoming more common. And not that LPVOs weren't also seen on Block 2 rifles. For all of those optics I just named, you can find photos of those on issued Block 2s as well. But I think there is a change in mindset now, and US SOCOM, more than ever before, is paying attention to the commercial market and seeing what trends are catching on, rather than having kind of their own thing and thinking that they're above the civilian market, which I think is very important. That's an important lesson to learn, is that the commercial market typically moves at a faster rate and has more innovation than the military market tends to. So moving back towards the upper receiver, these are going to be a standard M4A1 pattern upper receiver. I have found pictures of these with various different forge marks. This particular one is a C-stamped keyhole marked upper. I've also seen them with the square forge mark with the cage code. I've seen them with molar. I've seen them with even Dymaco uppers. So as long as you're sticking with an M4A1 pattern upper receiver, you're pretty much correct as far as that goes. This upper doesn't have any sights on it, but I should mention the most common sights that you'll see on these is a Knights Armament 600 meter rear, as well as a Taup Knights Armament folding front sight, which should be no surprise to anybody. Those are very prevalent in SOCOM's inventory. The charging handle is kind of interesting. This is a Geisley airborne charging handle. It is ambidextrous, so you can actuate it from either side. One thing that you can do for extra clone correctness is find the version of this with the subdued markings. So rather than having the bright white text on it, there are versions that don't have these markings at all. But that would technically be what is correct. As far as the bolt carrier goes, I found some info online saying there were some improvements made to the bolt carrier, but I couldn't find anything definitive on that. As far as I can tell, there's still a lot of just standard Colt M16 BCGs being issued in these. And then finally, I'll talk about the lower receivers a little bit. I covered this in my Block 2 video, comparing the different versions of the M4A1 Block 2, but the lower receivers, these are going to be set up kind of dependent on, again, what unit is issued them and what time period we're talking about. So you'll see these with a lot of the SOP mod stocks. You'll see these with newer stocks like Magpul CTRs. You'll even see these set up kind of as recce rifles in some instances where they have like more of a precision stock on them. There's pictures of these with Voltor stocks or just standard Colt waffle stocks. They're all over the place. You'll see these either with a standard sling plate like this one, or you'll see them in the Navy's inventory a lot of the times with a CQD sling plate, because that was more of a Navy thing. The difference there is that the Navy, in a lot of cases, would receive their Block 2 rifles or their Block 1 rifles as complete firearms from Crane, and Crane would often install those CQD end plates, but other units would just get these as upper receivers, and that goes for the URGI as well as the Block 2, in which case their lower receivers would just be a standard M4 pattern lower receiver. Things like the selector switch, which in this case is a Knights Armament Ambi. Again, that would be unit specific. The UID label from Carolina Laser Works, that would also be dependent on what group you're talking about. This is more of a MARSOC build, so that's why it has kind of this combination of parts. But to me, that's what makes cloning fun, is that there's a lot of little details you can get into with it. It's as much of a rabbit hole as you want it to be. If you just want to build something that is a basic kind of mimic of a certain service rifle, you can go into it and still have fun and have something that's a cool rifle. But if you want to spend a lot of time researching and figuring out what exact parts to get and then going on sort of a scavenger hunt for those parts, that's also fun for some people. So anyway, I think that's where I'm going to call it for this video. So thank you everybody for watching. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comment section below. I'm more than happy to interact with you guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also check me out on Instagram, where I post more high quality photos and shooting videos and such. You can find me there at inferior_rifles, and thank you for watching.